Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Honest Concepts Podcast. My name is Bronson Long. This is my instructor, Master Autry.
How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing great.
We missed you last week.
Yeah, I miss being here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's a good time we had last week hanging out with each other and people hanging out in the chat and whatnot. I had a lot of fun myself, but
That was a good podcast you did.
oh, thank you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's not easy doing it all by
No,
yourself.
last time I did it, I was stressed out.
It's not easy to do.
I was at a seminar than that. You know?
Right, exactly. Just punch me.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It was anything that could have gone wrong went wrong.
Yeah.
You know, we had technical difficulties
Exactly.
and stuff when
Yeah.
we started, but once you start kind of getting in the flow, and
Dude, I've watched that twice, and it actually did a good job. I enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate
enjoyed
that.
it. Maybe it's also watched it a couple times.
thank you.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
that's good. I appreciate that. It makes it a lot easier when you got the Miss Jenny Easters and the pool mics and
Exactly.
stuff there helping
Exactly.
you out along the way. It's kind of nice actually. But you know, every week normally what we do is we get here together. We start at 7:30 Eastern. And we have different topics every week. One
Right.
week it's my turn, one week it's your turn.
Right.
And this week it was your turn. And so the title of this episode is, we have to learn how to learn.
Exactly.
Right? Learn how to learn. So I've been training with you in martial arts for about 12 years.
Right.
And I've learned a lot through you. More than just martial arts, but, how to be a man and all sorts of amazing skills that I can take into my everyday life. And really, this show that we do together, though we come at it from the perspective of martial artists, is so much more than just our walk through martial arts, but more importantly, our walk through life.
Right.
And when you told me your concept for today's podcast, that learn how to learn, it made, so many things clicked in my head right off the bat.
That's the fun part about it. I don't know where you're going. You don't know where I'm
Yeah, so
going.
that is the fun
I
part,
enjoy
right?
this,
Yeah. And matter of fact, I was worried about, because I'm going to tell a story here, I was worried. I was like, I bet you he's going to tell the story, because I learned the story from you. But the old story is there's a martial arts instructor, and he's got a school, and somebody comes in there one day, and he wants to sign up for classes, So he says, okay, well, great. Well, let's sit down. We can talk about this, and we'll get you ready to go for the school, get to know you, you get to know me, make sure we're a good fit. So
Right.
we sit down together, and as you do back in the day, he steeps some tea, and he's letting the guy talk. And the guy's just so full of himself. He's telling the instructor, oh, I've trained over here, I've done a little bit of this, I've been over this way, and I've got lots of experience in this area and in this field. And he's just talking about himself so much. The instructor's, letting him talk, just letting him get it out. He said, oh, very nice. That's good to hear. Yeah. The tea's finally done steep. And he says, well, sir, I hate to cut you off, but would you like some tea? He said, oh, sure, thank you. Pushes his glass forward, and he goes on talking about his day. Well, the instructor, takes his tea, starts to pour it into that cup. And it gets up there, and it starts to rise up to the brim. And the guy's like, okay, that's enough. And just keeps on pouring. The tea pours over the edge of that cup, falls onto the table, overpours the table, and falls on the guy's lap. He gets up and he throws his hands in the air and he says, hey, I think that's enough tea. The cup is full. And the instructor looks at him and says, you're exactly right. And that cup can't take any more tea until the cup is empty again. And I can remember clear as day the first time I heard that story from you. It just made so much sense to me immediately. That for anything, it doesn't have to be martial arts. It can be quite literally any field
Absolutely
of your life.
can. Absolutely.
Physically, emotionally, mentally. As long as our cup is full, it just can't contain any more
Do you know
information.
where that came from?
I don't know, sir.
Bruce Lee.
Really? I did not know that. Really?
That came from Bruce Lee. Yes,
Wow.
sure did.
Okay.
Bruce Lee.
I did not
movie.
know that. Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That means a lot because it's true.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Oh, it sure is true. Absolutely it is. When we want to learn something new, again, it doesn't have to be martial arts, it can
Right.
be anything. We have to take what we think we know. This guy comes in, oh, I've done martial arts here, I've got experience here, I'm so good at
Right.
X, Y, and Z. His cup is full, and he can't retain any
And
more
he's full,
information.
too.
He's full of himself. Yeah. He's full, all right. And so we have to empty our cups in order to get more knowledge.
Right.
And that empty cup is really symbolizing someone who was ready to learn.
Sure. Sure. Excuse me, guys. I came up with that topic, and I was thinking, and just off the martial arts for a minute. I used to do a lot of catering when I was young. You cater, take the food, and you carry it out there to people, you clean up dishes and all. But a gentleman had a fine dining restaurant, fine dining. We had to wear tuxedos and everything. And I'd never really done anything like that. So I go in there, and I was waiting tables. I made some decent tips. But I started going to the kitchen. The owner was the chef. So I started hanging around the owner. And the owner would say, yeah, I said, how do you make this? He said, well, if you put a bit of more of this in it, it makes it this flavor. If you cook a steak, instead of 8 minutes, you cook it 12 minutes. But you cut the temperature down, it makes it a little softer. And he was giving me all these different things. And this spice you put in this way or that way. So he trained me that way for about 3 or 4 weeks. I just kept asking him questions. I was thinking, man, I've been doing this waiting thing wrong. So when I go to the tables now, I'd say, they'll say, well, how's the shrimp scampi? Oh, let me tell you what he does. I started describing it to him. I was learning how to teach. I was learning how to be a waiter. And then he said, well, what about the roast or the beef or whatever? I said, well, they do this, this, and this. And I noticed that when I got through feeding them, they'd say, you know what, I appreciate your recommendation. And my tips went up 40%.
What?
40%
Ooh,
they
that's
went up.
big.
I was telling Zoltry, it's because I took the time to learn to pass it on.
Wow.
Had I not taken that time to learn how to learn, I would have still been making whatever I was making.
Wow.
But that's what triggered that.
That's incredible.
True story.
That's an incredible story. Wow. That's something to study there. That's really, really cool. It just goes to show you that when you're more well informed, you can help people make better decisions. Right. I've learned that as a martial arts instructor. Truly, I mean, goodness gracious. When I had my first degree black belt, you know what a first degree black belt knows. And then 8 years down the road, you know a lot more than what you're used to, especially the more time you spend teaching.
Yeah. That's why they say, first black belt, you're just now ready to learn. It's like going to college.
You're right.
You've already went to school, now you got to learn.
Yes, sir.
That's
You're
really
right.
what the black belt is.
Right. It's like a high school diploma.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's really what it is.
Just now getting those first steps
Exactly.
in. The basic knowledge.
You can't tell people that.
No, sir.
Yeah, people come in, they'll say, I just want to get my black belt and get out of here. I used to hate to hear that because just say, I just want to learn this and I don't care about it anymore. I just want to get my black belt.
Right.
Well, that's not a goal. That's just, I don't know what you might call it, but it's not really a goal.
Yes, sir.
Now, if you train your black belt and then you quit later on, that's different.
Sure.
You say, look, I've already been here 3.5 years. I'm going to get that black belt and I'm out of here.
Right. Never coming
That's
back.
just a bad taste.
It is.
For everybody.
It is. Yeah, and
I
it
used to hate to
actually,
hear that.
in a lot of ways, it's really sad because it's like, you used the reference one day about a tree. When you put a tree in the ground. I recently planted a fig tree in my yard. Man, that thing is cool. The leaves on that thing are big old lush, pretty leaves. And it's grown up quite a bit in the last couple of months.
Right.
But it's not even close to being a tree yet, But you talked about martial arts students being like a tree, and you have to nurture it and cater it and work with it. And eventually one day you can kind of take the strings off of it and just let it be a tree. It's got strength. And over the years, before you know it, it's bigger than you are and it's grown. That's how your students are. And it's so sad because somebody gets a black belt. It's like you just now you don't even look like a bush anymore. You're starting to be a tree,
Right.
and now you quit.
And sometimes you have to trim those branches. Mm-hmm. They start getting a little arrogant on you. The people say, whoa, we can't do that in here.
Right.
And what you're doing, you're pruning it.
Right.
That's what you're doing. You're
Yes,
actually
sir.
pruning it. And they don't realize it. They're like, well, how can I do it? But you're pruning them so they will grow into a pretty tree.
You're right.
Or a good martial artist. That's your job. That's my job as instructors or
Yes, sir.
teachers or anything.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. And going back
I've
to
pruned a lot, I know. They started calling me and saying, we're not doing that. Oh, yes, sir.
yes, sir. It's funny you say that because when you go back into the topic of learning how to learn, learning, I think one of the greatest lessons I really ever got from martial arts, I don't think I've ever brought this up on this podcast before, is through your school, I learned how to take scrutiny so much better. What I mean by that is that I quickly found out that what I wanted to be good at, what I wanted to learn, if I really do care about it, I should be willing to accept scrutiny, because it's not about me at that point. They're not scrutinizing my character, who I am, my parents that raised me. They're scrutinizing the thing to help me. Even if they're being, there was, one guy in particular, I had a hard time with him one night. I got out of school, I was like, man, it's like, I just couldn't figure out what he was trying to tell me. It's almost like he was trying to mess me up on purpose. I'll tell you the story later. But honestly, he probably didn't know himself. You know what I mean? But I left, and I was like, man, that was kind of rough, it was hard to do. But I remember going home, that ride home, and thinking, this is what
a big guy.
No, sir. I remember thinking, this is what I wanted. This is what you want. You wanted to get good at this, and if you really want to get good at this, sometimes you have to admit that what you're doing is the wrong way.
Right.
You know, that to me, that really is learning how to learn, is accepting that the way you're approaching it might not be the correct way. Sometimes there's a better way.
Right.
And if that cup is empty, you'll be able to listen and find a better path.
Right.
The people who've come before you can help you find it.
Right. The hardest thing for me when I first started martial arts was back in 1971. That really, truthfully, and I mean this with all sincerity and out of love, I really do. But the instructors really didn't know how to teach. And not like they do nowadays, or like we do nowadays. I don't know, it just hadn't developed maybe, or they didn't stay long enough. But a lot of techniques, you would ask one instructor, he'd say, do it this way. Next week you ask another instructor, well, do it like this. Well, he told me to do it this way to myself.
Right.
And then the head instructor come in and said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm doing this Kata 1. We don't do it this way. You be sure you do this, this, and this. And so I didn't know what to do. I was always confused. That's why at our school, all the assistant instructors got together and we taught the same way. You know, I would teach you guys how to teach. That way it's the same going down the line. But they didn't do that. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm just saying I couldn't learn as much that way.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
And it makes it hard.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you have more experience on this than I do, so you could probably add much more value to the following statement. But to me, this is where I'm at currently. Now, I understand I've got a humongous mountain to climb. There's a large road ahead of me. But where I'm at currently, it seems to me that at first degree black belt, you kind of know some of the what. You know what to do. You know what I mean? How do I do this disarm? Well, here's what you do. You know, the second degree black belt seemed to me I was learning more on how to do the whats. You know, it's not just, oh, here's what you do. Here's how you do what you do. And then third degree, really, I feel like I've learned a lot more on the whys. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. There's a purpose behind all of this. There's a sense to it all. And again, I know I've got a long ways to go before I can probably look back and say, oh, it all makes sense now.
Right.
But I know, without a doubt, under your instruction, I know that you know the hows and the whys to your system and how you teach things. And if you can carry that over into whatever it is you're teaching, you know, the way you were helping those customers out at the restaurant, you were allowing them to see more than just an item on a menu, but you're telling them what they're doing in the kitchen, how they're doing it in the kitchen, and you may even told them why they were doing it in the kitchen. Well, this makes us say softer.
Right.
When people get that information, man, can you really learn something after that?
You know, I like telling stories.
Yes, sir.
You know, to my students and all. I want to keep them engaged in it. And you do too. Don't just go by and say, well, do it this way. You know what, man, when I learned this technique like this, I used to do it this way. You know, Phil Fountain. I used to do it this way, but what I found is if I started doing it this way, it's going to work a lot better. Try it and let me know in a couple of weeks.
Right.
Oh, okay. They go report back. Instead of saying, do it like this and walk away.
Yes.
Because we care. You know, our whole school, everybody cared about everybody.
That's right.
They really did.
That's right.
And you got to make them more intrigued, you know. And that's what I try to do. That's what you try to do.
Yes,
you know? And that's hopefully that's what set us apart.
Yes,
you
sir.
know? So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was contagious in your school. The learning was contagious, and that's what we're talking about tonight: is learning how to learn. And I think what your martial arts school did such a good job in, for so much more than just martial arts, was made learning intriguing, made it fun, made you desire to learn things. And the more I learned in the martial arts, the more I began to learn about other things in life. I began to connect it and compare it to so many things, to where now at this point in my life, that's all I see. I flip an egg in the frying pan. I'm like, man, that was just like a outside-in block, you know? I don't know.
What do you find the hardest right now for you as teaching?
As teaching?
A brand new student.
A brand new student.
Brand new student. Let's don't say a junior. Let's say somebody 20 years old.
Sure. Actually, it's a really, that's fun that you asked that, because last Thursday we had someone new come in. She's, I think she's in her early 20s. Yeah, she was 20 years old exactly. It's a young lady. She came in. And everybody has a different purpose.
Right.
You know, people come in for martial arts for different things. And, you know, some people, they come in and in their mind, they think, I want to go compete. You know, I want to go into a cage. I want to fight one day. Some people say, I'm here just because I think it's cool.
Right.
She in particular said, you know, I'm going to college and everything, and I just want to be safe when I'm out there. And so to me, that is where I want to start with somebody. a place that you can already make a connection to the techniques, to find a purpose in there. The hardest part for me really is that it's not getting students to perform the techniques, and at this point really it's not even teaching them. It doesn't feel like anymore. What it feels like to me is the hardest part is I want you to see just how full these techniques are. This is so much more than just you hitting somebody or grabbing a wrist or
Right.
doing an arm lock. There's so much more here, and it's just hard to express that to someone who's been taken for 5 minutes.
When people come in like that to me, this is after I've been in martial arts for maybe 20 years, 15, 20 years. At first, I didn't really know how to handle different situations like that. They tell me different things. And let's just say this young lady you're talking about, let's say she came in my school 10, 20 years ago. She said, I'm going to college, and what I really want to do is learn some self-defense. My response is, I'm glad you said that. Because they always think it sounds crazy or stupid, or they're
That
not
makes
sure of
sense.
themselves. First thing I say is, I'm glad you told me that. I'm glad you shared that with me, because that's what we're going to work on.
Wow.
She just relaxed. The guy comes in, he says, I'm 25 years old and I want to do some tough martial arts, this, that. I don't say that to him. I don't, because I'm not going to encourage the brutalness or the fighting and stuff,
Right.
not in the beginning anyway. If he says, I got a lot of stress at me at work, I just wanted, then that's when I'll say, I'm glad you did that. That's a great question. I'm
Wow.
glad you're here for that reason, because we're going to work on it.
Right.
I do everything except for the rah-rah-ree,
Right.
because it's hard for them to come and talk to you.
It is.
And here you are, got a black belt around your waist, and people are nervous. They're like, wow,
Right.
And you try to make them feel at ease. I
Right.
do, but that's what I would do.
Yes.
And just, I am so glad you said that, because that's what we're going to work on.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's perfect. And that's what people want, is to feel at ease.
Absolutely.
Especially,
They have confidence in you already.
Right,
Before you
exactly.
can get out on the floor, man, I like that guy.
Yes, sir. Right.
know?
And they're stepping into something new,
Yeah. If you go to a restaurant and you say, look, I want to order the shrimp scampi, and I'm not sure, but yeah, let's do the shrimp scampi and the cheese bread. And the waiter looked at you and said, you know what? That's one of my best dishes. I'm glad you ordered that. You're going to absolutely love it. You're like, wow. Right? If he said, okay, one shrimp scampi, and you want cheese bread, okay, walk away.
Right.
You don't get that feeling.
Wow.
You have to draw people in. That's how I feel about it. Now, everybody might have a different opinion.
Sure.
But that's how I feel.
No.
Because it's hard enough for somebody to walk in. I've had grown guys, grown men are the hardest ones to get out on the floor.
Sure.
They'll give you every excuse in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I hurt my knee in college, my elbow hurts, this or that. They're just scared to come out on the floor.
Right.
And I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I do get it. But little kids will run out there and ladies will come out there. But these big tough guys, it's hard to get them on the floor.
Right.
So you have to put them in the corner. So I'm going to show you one technique. You can go back to your chair. Let me show you another one. And it's like a little infant walking one step at a time.
Right.
Then they'll come in the floor.
Wow.
It's hard.
It is hard.
Yeah. But it's fun, isn't it?
It is. Actually, it's a lot of fun because, there's just so much good in there.
Mm-hmm.
You know that there's so much good. And I think that is, kind of really doubles down on my answer to what you said, is that there's so much fullness to this than what you do. And it's so much more than just the techniques, but it is a sense of confidence. It is a sense of safety.
It is.
And, I guess in some ways what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to teach them to learn how to learn that, teaching you how to learn more than just
They got to learn how to learn. You got to teach them how to learn.
right. And that's not easy to do. That's not easy to do.
It's not.
No way.
Because everybody's different.
Exactly what I was about to say.
Everybody's different.
Everyone.
And their personality is different. Their reasons are different.
Mm-hmm.
They might say the exact same thing, but they don't mean it.
Right.
Because they look at things different.
Right.
But it's hard.
And sticking it out isn't easy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially in a life that's constantly changing. I mean, when you're 20 years old, your life is still kind of up in the air a little bit.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in college, your jobs are changing, you're trying to find a career path, and you're doing stuff, and you're like, okay, I got to be at this class every single Thursday.
Right.
It's hard to make that sometimes, especially if I just got a brand new job. This could really line something up for me. Getting people to stay and to really stick with it, it takes time. It's like going back to that tree metaphor we talk about with the students, is that it takes time for those trees to produce the fruit.
Can you see students starting to lose interest sometimes?
Yeah, I can sometimes.
You can kind of figure it out that they're starting to lose interest.
Yes, sir.
What do you do?
That's a good question.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No, yeah.
I forgot about this, Ryan.
Again, everybody's a little bit different.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I try to think about something different. Like, some people seem to be just rather uncomfortable with certain movements and techniques.
Right.
you know?
Especially women.
Right, exactly. There are certain things that they don't want to do, and understandably so. There's certain techniques that
Sure.
you'd like to say, hey, I want the ladies to partner with ladies with this one,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera. But I want to do something that makes them feel good. If you start to lose interest, I'm just assuming it's because something is not being fulfilled. And one of the greatest things that you can fulfill in life is not the greatest, but it's up there, is joy. And if I can make you enjoy the class and enjoy the learning experience, I feel like we're on the right track. Just get you to enjoy it again, have a good time. If you can relate the martial arts to something that, I walked in and I felt better leaving than I did when I walked in before.
Right.
I think I'll go back there. And that's my ultimate goal, is to have you come back, because I want you to have joy. I want you to feel good. But two, really, truly, ultimately, there's so much here that I know that if you just stuck around,
Right.
you could get this. And it is, wow.
And
it's
they're
so
almost
cool.
turning the corner.
Right.
On certain techniques, you see them like, man, this is actually pretty good.
Right.
But you can tell they're losing interest. You're like, man, if he just put a little more interest in it, that technique and that
Right.
technique, he'd be testing for his green belt or purple
Right.
belt, whatever.
Right.
But yeah, that's the hardest thing. When you see somebody losing interest and you're like, and you try different things to
Right.
work with them. A lot of times I'll just call them in the office and say, look, let me ask you something. I noticed the last couple of times you've come into class, you're like you got something on your mind. Is everything okay? Is there anything I can do to help you?
Right.
And then I shut up.
Right.
I don't say another word. I just lean back behind the desk. And either they'll tell you their life story, what's going on,
Right.
or they'll say, no, everything's fine. It's okay. If I can help you, let me know. I don't beat it out of them. But I'll say, is there anything I can do to help you? Just let me know.
Right.
That's what I'm here for. Then I'll just sit back. Most of the time they'll say, well, you know what? My wife's got a new job. My kids are in school. I've got a 16, 17-year-old boy that's getting in trouble. I'm just whatever.
Sure.
And he said, I just got a lot on my plate. I said, okay. How old is your son? They'll say 16, 17. I said, bring him to class. Let him come watch you.
Right.
Or let him join for a couple, 2 or 3 weeks. I don't care. We'll teach him. But try to help him with a problem.
Right.
And a lot of it is that. I mean, teaching's 80% of it, but the 20% backs up the 80%.
A
It's
lot.
a strong 20%
It
has
is.
to back it up. It really does.
Yes, sir. You're very right. It is true. And that stuff goes a long way, really.
Sorry, guys, we're getting off subject a little bit. We're starting to talk now. Shop talk.
Yeah. And you're right, though.
Yeah.
And that 20%, like you said, goes a long way, because I think it goes beyond just your knowledge, especially in a world like today when information is so readily available.
Right.
You can go online and learn just about anything.
Sure you can.
I can go get AI to teach me how to make a rocket,
Right.
if I really wanted to. But can you find someone that cares about you?
Yeah.
That's, not necessarily the most common.
And that's what happened in that restaurant. There's people like, he took the time to explain all this to me. He cares.
Right.
He wants me to enjoy the meal. That's why the tips went up.
Yes, sir.
When people appreciate something, they'll show you. I mean, it might not be with money, but they'll show you with whatever.
Right.
It's just rewarding.
Yes,
It
sir.
always has been for me.
It is. And I think the thing that I've noticed the most in my life, and as an instructor, things happen. People give you cookies around Christmas time or gift cards for what I
Had this lady make me M&M cookies
Yes, sir.
about once a month for about a year and a half. She moved, and I hated it. It was alternative, a lot of M&M cookies.
That's hilarious. I think the greatest gift I've ever got from students, so to be honest with you, this may sound a little cheesy, but I really do mean it, is the attention.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you see they're really paying attention in class, when I was 16-ish or so, there were times where, you're just 16. You're just your brain's not there yet.
You don't know
it's just
anything.
not there yet. And so I just no particular reason, but I'd be in your class and sometimes my brain would skip a beat for 5 seconds, and I'd see all the students bow out. We're getting ready to go back to do a technique. I'm like, oh no, what are we doing? I didn't see what we were doing. And what I've found over the years is that. It's common for younger people to do, but when you can really have that attention, when you are teaching something, you look out and you see everyone's watching your feet, they're watching your hands, they're listening to what you're saying. You're like, okay, now we're learning. You know what I mean? People are really in this learning mode here.
Right.
And that's a lot.
It is.
It's a lot.
It's for me. It's hard for me to understand how you can be in a class, because I just love the martial arts, but it's hard to be in a class or a cooking class, whatever you do, mechanics class, whatever,
Right.
and have a desire to do it and not put effort into it. And I've seen that a lot of times.
Right.
I know they're good, but they just don't put effort into it. And you're thinking, man, if you just put a little more effort in that, you would just be at the top of the class. That's how school teachers feel.
Right.
You know, like probably me when I was in high
I
school.
know it was me.
They're like, man, if you just do the book report, you
Right.
could be at the top. I just wanted to go to martial art
Yeah,
class.
right.
I'm 16. I don't want to be in school.
Get me out of here. But you're right, though. And you can see that. And that's so funny that you mentioned that, because you can actually see that light bulb click when a student has found something that they're feeling and they're enjoying it. All of a sudden, the intention and the technique really starts to level up. And that's what I've noticed a lot of times. I've done it. I've seen other students do it. Your hands are in the right place. Your feet are in the right place. You're doing the right thing. But there's something missing. There's this feeling. There's this essence. There's this intention behind the technique that makes it look dry. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know how to describe it. I mean, you probably know what I'm talking about.
What do
but,
you mean dry? The technique looks dry, or they look dry?
Them, the person doing it, even though they're doing the right things, they're in the right places, but they're just doing it to do it. Does that make sense?
There's no emotion in it.
That's what it is. There's no
emotion.
intention. There's
Yeah,
no
there's no
emotion.
emotion.
When it's like adding salt to the meal, all of a sudden, like, you can see it in a student. I mean, here's one thing. Well, we're really getting into martial arts now.
Sorry, guys, the whole night's been about martial arts. It's kind of what we do for a living.
Sorry. But here's one thing.
Just come back a little bit.
When you do a technique and you're working it out,
Right.
You show me many of things. I haven't had any emotion behind them because I'm working it out. Okay, where was my elbow supposed to go? How am I supposed to do
That
this?
is emotion, because you're trying to get it right.
I'm trying. Right. Yes, sir. Once that working out process gets there, then it starts to feel a bit better. Now you can throw some salt on there and start putting your intention behind it. Once the intention gets there, that's when the technique feels like it's alive now. It doesn't feel dry anymore, you know?
Exactly.
And when you see a student doing that, you're like, oh man, that's fun to watch. I can watch that all day.
Of all the instructors that I had, and I've had quite a few, and I've been in thousands of classes. I mean, literally thousands of classes. I had an instructor in the States. I think I told you this one day. I was doing semi-private lessons with him. There's 4 or 5 people there. Sometimes just him and I. Man, a few words. Dry sense of humor in the world. Just dry. Never said, good job, this or that. One day I was doing this technique. I was doing some kind of judo throw or lock or something. I can't remember what I was doing. And I looked at him, and he had his arms folded. He went, just give me a little, I'll tell you this.
Yes,
he
sir.
gave me just a little smile. That was the same thing as hugging me.
Right.
I was like, man, he smiled at me. I was so excited. I didn't sleep for 2 days. He just gave me a smile because that was a lot for him.
Right.
That was emotions.
Right.
He was like, good job, young man.
Yes,
he
sir.
didn't say that.
Right.
That's what he meant.
That's what he meant. That's exactly right.
I'll never forget that. If I let it be 120, I'll remember that.
Yes, sir.
I will.
It's funny how that works, you know. It's martial arts can really bring it out of you. It really can. It can bring out some amazing things.
I think we got kind of off the subject a little bit.
We did way deep off subject.
Sorry,
but,
guys.
I'll tell you what, we're gonna pull this up because my phone actually just now died, which is funny. But I know that we had lots of chatters, so I'm gonna pull this up so we can have our chatters pulled up here.
I know Miss Jenny's on here and Paul Mike probably.
Yeah, I saw quite a few down there, but right when I was about to go read them, my phone just died. Imagine that. Just so funny. Yeah, we kind of got into some martial arts tonight there. That was
Yes, sir.
something else.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Still saying isn't as shocked as you are.
Right. Okay, let's see where we are. We'll come up here.
Wow.
Yeah, good to see you guys. So glad you're all here. Miss Jenny says, I was wondering, is the chat working prior to the starting? And yes, it does, right? So we set up the broadcast, and so before we actually go live, you'll be able to go into the chat and have things ready to go there even before we get started. Mr. Tab Hunter says, glad to see the both of you. It's good to see you too, Mr. Hunter.
How
Hope
you
you're doing
doing,
well.
sir?
Miss Jenny says, in the past months, I didn't get the whole black belt was the start of the journey, but it hit me one day, and it was an aha moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean,
It is, yeah. I remember the first time I ever heard you use these words. You were showing myself and 2 other black belts. We were there. I think there was a second degree there too. We were doing a technique with this, and all 4 of us were just like, "Wow! I mean, this is deep." And, we're over there just kind of snickering like school kids talking to each other about this technique. And you would come in, and I guess you could just sense that we were over there just really enjoying it. And you were like, guys, I mean, this is just tip of the iceberg. When you said that, I was just like, whew, this is just the beginning. I can't imagine what the end looks like. I mean, this is just crazy.
The funny part about it is that on?
I'm sorry?
Is that on live?
Yeah, it's live.
Okay.
Yeah, they just,
It's just like The funny part about it is right now, to this day, I feel like I don't know a third of what I should know.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I do. Because there's just so much to learn.
There is.
I mean, you never learn it all. And people used to tell me that years ago, instructors, and I'm like, yeah, when I get 40 years old, I'll know it. But you don't. The more you're into it, the more you know that you don't know. It's true.
Yes,
It's
sir.
true.
Right. And the martial arts in particular is a world of infinite possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there's just, the carnal
Absolutely.
brain just can't figure it. There's just no way. And that's what makes it fun in a lot of ways.
Exactly.
That's what makes it fun. Mr. Pool Mike says, I am an auditory learner. My wife is a visual learner. She can never hear what I say and can never see what she is saying. We still get along great. You know what? In some ways, that's kind of a good thing, right? Because if you got a family together, you got two different types of learners and two different types of teachers. And you got a good point, Pool Mike, is that some people just learn differently. Some people need to see. Some people need to hear. I'm one of those people. I need to do. I need to mess something up about 1,000 times for me to really understand it.
Yeah, I need to see it.
Really?
I do. I need to see it. Figuring it out, that's not my strong part. Now, in the martial arts, after 20 years, you start figuring it out.
Right.
But in the beginning, I had to see the technique. I had to see it. The only reason is, they could tell me, without showing me. I was like, well, can you show it to me? If they show it to me, then I could do it.
Right.
Monkey do, monkey see.
Right,
see it.
right.
But monkey see, monkey do. But anyway, I'm a visual person. Yeah.
Yeah. It helps a lot to have that stuff there. Miss Easter says, opposites attract. It is a thing. Yeah, very true. Miss Jenny says she is a visual learner. Yeah. Miss Connor Rain says, I've been here for a while, but honest, and I am saying hello. Hello, guys.
Miss Connor.
Said, I see you did with the honest, lurkers, and giving thumbs up. Pool Mike says, I'm hanging with Flo. She is getting education here. I'm assuming that's your doggy.
Yeah.
That is so funny. Mr. Ben Hunter says, what is some good advice on how to do something new? Some good advice on how to do something new.
I've got an answer. How about you?
I was really hoping you'd go first.
Okay. If you're going to start something brand new, let's say it's whatever it is, just do a little research. Because everything's at the web now, everything's on the internet. Just do a little research. You might want to go train dogs, so just do some research. You might want to be a swim instructor, just do some research on it.
Right.
And there'll be some stuff in there that you're not sure of. It'll open your eyes. It might make it better. It might make it, well, maybe I don't want to do as much as I thought.
Sure.
But just do a little research, And I've told them, hundreds of people come to my school. I said, look, this might not be the school for you. I'm not going to try to make you join today. In fact, I don't want you to join today.
Right.
Unless you just want to. But we'll come out on the floor and then go to other schools. I've had so many times, so I don't need to. I'm going to join that right now.
Right.
Most of the time, that's what they'll do because they don't feel pressured.
Right.
I meant that too. I'd rather them go out. You want to do Kung Fu or Taekwondo or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, whatever you want to do, just go try it.
That's nice. Yeah, no pressure.
And that's another thing. People ask me all the time, what's the best martial arts? It's not Taekwondo, it's not Aesop Jiu-Jitsu, it's not BJJ. What's best is what's best for you.
Right.
And I truly mean that.
I do too.
People try to put down other martial arts. There's people that take Taekwondo, they love it. And they love it. They wouldn't stop for the world. And I say go for it.
Right.
They might do Kung Fu. They might do Ishinryu, Gojinryu. They might do Shotokan. They might do Kodokan Judo.
Right.
Whatever they decide to do. They might do Aesop. They might do BJJ. But what happens is don't fall into the hype. Do it for you. Because you're saying, everybody's doing this. But you're not everybody. You're an individual.
Right.
That's why I used to tell people, you're an individual.
That's exactly right. I tell my students a lot of times, everybody's different. You know what I mean? You've got a different idea. You have a different lifestyle.
Right.
You have a different body and a different build,
Right.
we walk on our feet, fish swim in the water. We still get to where we're going. You know what I
Right.
mean? Just pick what works best for you
Sure,
and enjoy
sure.
yourself. But my advice, Mr. Ben Hunter, on what is some good advice on how to do something new, don't be afraid to lose. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That is, again, I just can't express that enough for the things that we've spoken about tonight with ASOC. One of the greatest things I ever got to walk away from in martial arts, if I stopped tomorrow and never did martial arts another day in my life, one thing that would stick with me that I truly got from martial arts is learning how to lose. Right? I mean, doing things in a way where you mess something up, but you don't view it as a bad thing or an embarrassing thing. You know, I did a demo in front of your school one day. One of the first times I did a demo, and I know I messed something up. I don't remember what it was at this point in time, but something didn't go quite right. And yet, when I finished it, people still told me, hey, you did a good job out there. Just because I made one simple, small mistake doesn't mean I didn't do a good job.
Right.
Doesn't mean you didn't do a good job. It just means you're human.
Right.
You're not perfect. You know, and we're all going to do
It
those
makes
things.
you feel bad.
Yeah,
'Cause
exactly.
you know you messed that up.
Exactly right. But you know that you can go back and do it again. You've got this. You know what I mean? Those mistakes that you make are what allow you to do better next time. You know, really, truly, it's what keeps that cup empty.
I was at Matthews Alive, I don't know, back in 1982, 4, whatever it was. It's a big street festival. Probably, I don't know, 500 people in front of the
It's a
stage.
pretty big
watching.
festival.
I mean, they had like 1,000, 2,000 people there, but right in front of the stage, there's probably 500, 600 people. Big stage, outdoors. I was doing a sword demonstration. I told you this, right? About halfway through, I went to do a cut, and it slipped out of my hand. It went flying across the floor. The sword did.
Right.
It was a wooden sword, and I'm like, oh, what do I do? So I just started going into a kata. And everybody thought it was part of it. Everybody just, man, I love the way you transition. I was like, yeah, okay, thanks.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, right?
True story.
Yeah, take notes.
I walk around and pick it up and start again.
Right,
It kills
exactly.
everything. I just threw it over there and started doing kata.
That is so cool.
It's adapting.
Right, that is so cool. And I think that's like what Miss Jenny says here, failing makes you stronger. And those moments right there, when you feel comfortable with something like that, you can move. But, you know, you had this feeling at the time you didn't get defeated by dropping that sword. You
Right.
just kept it moving,
Right.
kept it pushing,
Right.
and it turned out to be something good. And I think whenever you're approaching anything new in life, just accept the fact that, you know, it's new to you. And
Right.
you're new to it, and eventually you guys are going to gel. You know what I mean? Whatever it is you're doing, ping
Right.
pong, synchronized
Exactly.
swimming, whatever it is, eventually it'll work out, you know. But in the beginning, you know, just go into it with that type of
Yeah.
mindset. And, you know, we talk about in the martial arts about having a beginner's mind.
Right.
You know, and maybe we can do that as a topic one day.
That would be a good topic.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
It'd be really fun.
Yeah.
Well, guys, it is 8 minutes past 8 o'clock. We stuck around for a while, but we got kind of deep in the realm of martial arts
We
tonight.
did. It was
yeah,
fun, though.
that was fun. Yeah, that was a good time. Actually, I enjoyed that. Really, I mean, it's relatable to everything.
It
You
is.
know, it's really, it's not our walk through martial arts. It's more importantly our walk through life.
Right.
And regardless of whichever way you look at
Sure.
it, it's approachable. It's all
Yeah.
really the same thing. Everything's connected in that regard. So, well, guys, thank you so much for your attention, your activity in the chat, your lurking. We do appreciate each and every one of you. We hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Guys, have a good night.
We'll see you guys next week.